Presented by Kamuk Ukulele Magazine, this is Ukulele Stories. Mr. Peter Luongo, welcome to Ukulele Stories.
It's great to be here, Cameron. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. You were one of the first people, I think, outside of locals in Australia that I met who was very much into the ukulele. And I was thinking about it just before. The first time I met you, I believe, was at the 32nd Annual Ukulele Festival of Hawaii, so Roy Sakuma's old festival, in 2002.
Yep.
I believe it was. So I think James Hill had only recently left the group,
That's
the Langley Ukulele Ensemble, and he was the star performer. I'm not sure which hotel it was, but it was in Waikiki.
The Sheraton.
It was at
Waikiki.
the Sheraton.
Yep.
And yeah, so I was absolutely blown away by James, of course, but also the Langley Ukulele Ensemble, which, you know, is still going strong and is an incredible story behind it, which we'll hopefully get to hear from you right now.
I'd love to share it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an auspicious day. It's the 23rd of August here in Sydney, Australia. It's not in Langley, British Columbia. So we're living in the future here. It's already...
I'm happy there's a tomorrow. Trust me, I'm delighted. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
People might know, but if they don't, August 23rd is a very meaningful and auspicious day in the history of the ukulele. It's the day the SS Ravenscrag arrived in Honolulu Harbor carrying the men who would go on to create the ukulele. Fantastic to talk to you on such an important day.
Well, let me tell you what we did today.
Okay, go for it.
So for the last week, for the last 5 days, we have been sponsoring, the Langley Ukulele Association has been sponsoring a ukulele camp for kids.
Wow.
So this is sort of our annual tradition right at this time of year. So it's very much the celebrating of the start of the ukulele's history is also when we start a new batch of kids. It's a new cohort of learners, and we literally start them this week. So today was the concert that we put on for parents after a week of instruction for these new kids. So we went through each morning, Monday to Thursday. Every morning they came in, we taught them skills, we prepared some music at different levels. And then today was the concert. So we had 5 different levels of kids that played. Wow. And they celebrated. We had about 150 people show up, parents, grandparents, obviously. And the kids, we had 50 kids involved. The new cohort is 50 kids for this year. And so we brought those students in, and they came in and did everything from a rousing rendition of Bluey. What is it? Bluey is the one character. It's an Australian.
Yeah. Well, the show's called Bluey too. Yeah,
it is. And so they did the theme song from Bluey all the way through Oh When the Saints, all the way through the William Tell Overture. I even had a group of kids singing in 3-part harmony, All My Lovin' by the Beatles. So they did a little Tico Tico in honor of the Portuguese, the sailors. So it was a great event, a great celebration. And we're now off and started on a new year with 50 new kids that will one day, we hope, become members of the senior ensemble. And in fact, it's interesting. I use the senior kids, those kids that were featured in the movie The Mighty Uke, the group that James was part of. I use those students now and teach them to teach. And so they came as assistant teachers. And in fact, the 5 sessions that I said we ran, other than the session that I ran, which was one of 5, the other 4 sessions were led by either current or previous ukulele teachers from the Langley Ukulele, players from the Langley Ukulele Ensemble. So it was a great celebration, a new beginning for us, just like it was a beginning for the ukulele on the anniversary of the 23rd. We just didn't have a Ravenscrag or any Rajaos there to show, but we had a great time just the same.
Incredible. How long have you been starting kids off on this date?
That's a great question. This is year 19.
Okay.
And the reason it's a great question, Cameron, is because previously, like during the time that James was in the ensemble, we actually had as many as 2,000 kids, sometimes more than 2,000, playing in the Langley School District in our schools. So they would show up for music class on a Tuesday morning, and they were one of, let's say, 3 classes in my school or 4 classes of 30 kids in my school alone who would come and get 2 lessons a week to learn to play the ukulele. And we would teach it in the system that Chalmers Doan created, Chalmers Doan from Nova Scotia, and essentially teaching students all the elements, everything from note reading, notation reading, we don't use tab, to ear playing, to strumming, chord patterns, theory. Clearly, we would deal with singing,
Mm.
singing in melody and harmony. And through it all, we had developed a great number of fantastic players. And James was one of, certainly one of the most famous right now and very accomplished, but lots of really good players who had come through the system learning to play. Well, lo and behold, just as I'm sure is the case all over the world, cuts in education, cuts in music programs, pretty soon there's just a dwindling number of schools down to the point where there were maybe 4 or 5 of us. I was still the last vestige. And when I retired, that took another major program out of the works.
Mm.
So we were left with, really 19 years ago, the idea that we better get started raising our own ukulele players and teachers. And so that's
Right.
what we did. We started this camp. We brought kids in. We do a second camp in spring so that we sort of have this a constant ongoing turn of kids coming in and trying it and seeing if they like it. And if they like it, come back in summer. And then in September, this September, we will have that cohort of kids. Usually it's anywhere from 35 to 50 kids that we then start to train as our beginner group. And they progress into an advanced beginner group and then an intermediate group, a
Mm.
senior B group, and a senior A group. The senior A group is the group that travels to Hawaii every year that will be coming to the UK next August for the Ukulele Festival of Great Britain. And the senior B kids also perform. And in fact, the senior B kids and the senior A kids joined me last year at the LA Ukulele Festival in Torrance, the one run by Mitch Cheng. And they performed as a complete ensemble. 2 groups combined, those kids that could make it went. And so we have 2 performing groups at the upper end. We have an intermediate group that's always performing, but not with the high stakes. And in fact, even our junior kids perform, just not as often or with the same expectation of fine-tuned arrangements. But that's how our program is now run. So it was fortuitous, not right. It was strategic that we started
Mm.
running the classes after school, and that's now all the kids who are playing in that senior group started as campers, and so that's our program.
It's incredible how self-sustaining it is. I mean, I know it's obviously taken a lot of work to get it to this level. We've mentioned James a couple of times. We're of course talking about James Hill. What was he like as a student? I've asked him what you were like as a teacher, but not.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. You can tell me later what he said. Actually, you know what? We had a great relationship, and James's mom and dad are terrific people, really fine people, and raised a wonderful young man. Very clearly from the beginning, 3 things were true. The first was that he was clearly really talented. Like he had a fabulous ear, and understood when he was taught, understood the fine, you could teach him to think. And that's the nature of the way we teach our program. You could teach James to think and James would make the connections. Now, with some kids, you need to lead them to the connections. With James, it suddenly started to become, oh no, I get it. Oh no, I get it. Oh no, I get it. And so he was able to make connections very quickly. And that's the second thing, musical, but able to really think through and make connections. And then the third quality about him was that he always was prepared to challenge and be challenged convention. So, one of the things that I would do, and he and I've kidded about this since, he said to me at one point, you always let us give our input. And then at some point you'd say, okay, that's it. Here's how we're doing it. And I always thought, well, wait a minute. I'm not finished selling my idea yet. And that was James. I think my idea is a good idea. And he came to realize, and it was great and again, this is a tribute to him. He said, I got it. Like at some point you could do it at infinity, the number of times that you would try different ideas. At some point you got to get on with making music. And you were the arbiter of that. And you always gave it enough time. You gave it enough consideration. You got our input and then said, okay, let's go. And I get it. I get it now, he said. The third thing about James is incredible is as good a musician, and he is a great musician, phenomenal. He's an even better person. He's just a really good guy.
Hmm.
I consider him one of my closest friends. I consider him a colleague, obviously, and I consider him a person that it's important for me to stay in contact with because we push each other to think, to create, and understand. My thing, my jam, is teaching.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in becoming a virtuosic player. I don't have time in my life to do that. My thing is teaching and developing kids
Hmm.
and developing young people, or developing now adults that I work with, into people that see the value of using music as a vehicle to get them to a better place, whether it's
Hmm.
fulfillment of enjoyment of life for the adults I work with, or whether it's fulfillment of the ability to problem solve, creative think, work with other people that I do with children. And so when he and I get together, like we'll say, okay, let's have a 15-minute chat. And an hour and a half later, we both say, you know what? My wife's calling me for dinner and you need to go to bed. So, because he's of course in Nova Scotia. So it's a real tribute that James is, yes, a great musician. And yes, he's constantly thinking and making connections. And that's always been his way. And he's also just a great guy.
Well, couldn't agree more. How did you personally get involved with education, and did Chalmers Doan have much to do with that? And maybe can you tell people who Chalmers Doan is if they don't
Sure.
know?
So Chalmers Doan um, is still from Nova Scotia. He's in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and he had done some studying with Bornoff in Massachusetts, and his mother had played the ukulele, and he saw a connection between some of Bornoff's ideas, that the idea of rhythm and melody and really bringing out music for kids as being possible through the ukulele. And so he literally took the instrument that we now play as we do and said, this will be the tool to develop music literacy with kids. And he piloted it in Nova Scotia. And he then presented what he had done with kids across Canada. And it got out in a music educators conference that one of my supervisors, actually, I wasn't hired yet. So the supervisor of music for the Langley School District heard the presentation. He said, I like the sounds of this. This could be cool. Well, the school district was already presenting Kodai, the Kodai system, solfege, uh, TAs, TTs, right? The system put together by
What
Zoltan
sort of
Kodai.
year is this? What era?
The year that this all occurred was in the mid to late 1970s. Okay, so he comes
Right.
out 1978. He's got this program going in Langley. 1977, he's got some teachers there. He trains them. 78, they're playing. 1979, I'm at the University of British Columbia, and one of the professors there is good friends with Ray Featherstonhaugh, who is the supervisor of music in Langley. And that professor, Dr. Cam Trousdale, has bought hook, line, and sinker into the ukulele. Besides, he's also Chalmers Doan's dear friend. So he brings the program to the university for those studying to be music teachers. I take the course. He looks at me and says, you should go study with Chalmers in Nova Scotia. I said, Nova Scotia's on the other side of Canada. I'm not going there. And so I said, no, I'm not interested in traveling to the Atlantic. I like the Pacific. I like the temperature of the Pacific. I'm staying here. He said, well, I'll tell you what, the next best thing, would you consider going to Langley where they want to adopt a ukulele program? I said, sure. Well, they hired me. They hired me and
Right.
said, we are specifically hiring you to come in and teach ukulele. So I went in as a classroom teacher slash music specialist and taught ukulele. Cam, the kids took to it. They enjoyed it. I enjoyed making music, getting music out of them. I enjoyed the way it made them feel, and it gave me a sense that this is a really neat way to get kids engaged in music literacy. Well, pretty soon they started getting invited to present at music festivals and conferences. They got invited to go on tour and do a little tour around our own community and then around our province. Within 5 years of my taking on an after school group So this would be from those thousands of kids taking ukulele instruction during the day.
Mm.
We took kids and auditioned them for honor groups. I ended up with the top group in 1981. And within 5 years of that, they were performing in Hawaii. Our first trip to Hawaii was in 1985.
Wow.
We had an exposition here in here in Vancouver, the Expo 86. We auditioned for it. We started to get performances at the fair, at the World's Fair. Pretty soon we were performing 20, 30 different shows, 40 shows. Well, you know what happens when you perform a lot? You get better.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids were getting really good. So guess what? They get invited back to Hawaii. We go back to Hawaii, we perform again. Now they're starting to get gigs here. They're getting performances here in town. And now the TV crew is picking up on this neat story about a group of kids that are playing the ukulele in Langley and going to Hawaii. Pretty soon a radio station picks up on it and says, we want to interview you every year, bring you in. Well, lo and behold, we start producing CDs. Those folks listening at home can't see the photo, but there's a photo just over my right shoulder of all the CDs that the kids did under my tutelage. Well, we sold CDs. We performed a ton. We were performing 80 times a year. Cameron, 80. That's 80 times a year. And these kids are all elementary and high school kids. They're selling CDs hand over fist. We're going to Hawaii every year. In 1994, we got a chance to perform at the Sheraton Waikiki. And the folks at the Sheraton absolutely loved it. So they have had us back every year since. This was year 28. Well, I got to meet Hawaiian folks. I got to meet all kinds of folks from Australia. I got to meet folks from all over the world who heard about this program. We got extended invitations. And so we were performing across Canada, across the United States. And one of those locations was right back in the home of the Canadian ukulele, back in Nova Scotia. We got the kids playing, and a film crew was there, happened to be there. A fellow named Tony Coleman was going to make a movie about the ukulele. Didn't know what it was going to be yet, but he knew he was going to do this. He hears our group rehearsing. He turns the camera on. He looks at one of my parents and says, I think I just made my movie. And so what he did was he followed us right through our year. He came out to Langley, where we if you've seen the film, you know there's a scene with a bunch of kids in the gym. That's the annual festival that we were holding. And then he followed us to Hawaii, and he came along and interviewed Hawaiians. He showed what we did and how we did it. He stayed in our home with his partner, Marg, and they interviewed me, and they interviewed kids, and they interviewed parents. And of course, in 2007, I believe, 2008, the movie came out. And all of a sudden, the story went worldwide. And we had folks that knew about Langley ukulele all over the world. We made strategic partnerships, Cameron, which is really important. We clearly were blessed to be connected with Tony in that movie making, but we also made great connections with the folks in the largest viewing audience of a news program was at the time Global TV, BCTV. We got on with them. We got on with the biggest radio station. We were able to connect to Rotary, which it was really great because that gave our children an opportunity, our students an opportunity to get involved in some of the scholarship programs that Rotary does. We got involved with Rotary to the extent where we would perform at their conventions, including their international conventions in San Antonio, Texas, in New Orleans, in California. We'd get invited to go and do that. And we were the main stage entertainment. Offers to go and play for their leadership seminars. And I put together a leadership talk that was centered on the four names of the strings. And we'd talk about the leadership based on strings attached. And I'd have
Right.
a demonstration where I'd teach the kids a new song in 4-part harmony, picking, singing, strumming, bass, 4 parts in 10 minutes. And the challenge was for the Rotarians to view those 4 elements of leadership, that they would be able to then say, I get it. That's present in the way that the ensemble operates. So it became a phenomenal display. I would model different folks all the time. I would model singing groups. I would model educators that I really respected. And so as a result, we were able to hone the skills of these kids to the point where they were, in every way other than their age and their volunteer status, they were pros. They could play lights out. And I would say, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm no longer the director. It's our son, Paul, now. But I would say that they are They are the world's finest ukulele playing ensemble. There isn't an ensemble that can play at the level that these kids can play at.
It was also fortuitous timing in a way with what I like to call the third wave of ukulele. The third wave is basically the internet drove a lot of it, and it became just a massive, massive thing. So when was the height, do you think, of the ensemble, or are we still at it?
No, you know what? I'm going to make two comments to that, Cam. I would say there have been peak points
Hmm.
several times. I'm going to be really careful about how I say this. During the time that James was in the ensemble, our eldest son, our eldest daughter were also in the ensemble. We also had some phenomenal talents who had no other music instruction other than ukulele. If not for the ukulele, and I had people tell me this, families tell me this, if not for the ukulele, they would not have had music in their lives.
Hmm.
So we were really blessed to have had this convergence of great musical kids all connect at the same time. And remember, I talked about James's personality. Well, he was the type of person that was always pushing the boundaries in terms of what the instrument could do, even as a kid. So guess what? The other kids took note. So the other kids learned from him. And I absolutely would challenge kids to be able to try different things and then share that with each other. So because James was there and that was a peak point, he set a peak point. Well, guess what? The next players that came exceeded that peak point.
Yeah.
And then you got a new peak point and kids started to play to that. And then they exceeded that. You know, there was a time when the William Tell Overture as an arrangement was the most difficult piece in our repertoire. I just taught a group of grade 5, 6s to play it this week.
Wow.
See, what's happened is peak points have continued. So clearly there was a peak point in the 80s, late 80s. There was a second peak point when we got to Hawaii in the 90s, in the mid 90s, when James was involved.
Which was also a
The,
kind of a resurgence of the ukulele in Hawaii in the
you
mid
got it.
'90s. Yeah.
That's right. Then there was the third wave, and you got it in the early 2000s. Well, by that time, now in Langley, it's the coolest thing you could do is play the ukulele. Now we got kids flocking, wanting to play, right? So we're
Brilliant.
back to a situation where these kids are really good and they're really good candidates and they're playing at a high, high level early 2000s. We got it through into the late 2000s. And I'll tell you, we right around the Mighty Uke, man, those kids, they were touring. Let's see, one year we went to Nova Scotia, performed at an international tattoo in front of 9,000 people a night. We left there, changed our underwear, and got on another plane to Hawaii, performed in Hawaii, got home from Hawaii, got back on a plane, and went to Ontario, where we performed at the Stratford Summer Music Festival. Came home, went to school for a couple of weeks, got back on a plane, and went to the Ceilidh in Nova Scotia, the ukulele Ceilidh. Well, when you've played that much in that intensive a time,
Yeah.
you got to know that you're on automatic pilot playing and you're not making many mistakes. You got this thing nailed. So that was another peak point. Well, around 2012, 11, 12, I announced that I'd be retiring and we took a dip. 2013, our son took over, started to rebuild it. We were on the road to rebuilding it. I say we because I'm the president of the Langley Ukulele Association. He's leading that ensemble. Paul is leading it. We get to the point where we're starting to rebuild it, get it to where it was, and COVID hits.
Mm.
So COVID hits, we get through it, doing online, trying to do online concerts, playing with masks on, and we ended up coming out of that. And I'll tell you, we just hit another peak.
Great.
Because LA Ukulele Festival gave these kids a chance to be seen again, and they are back on fire. The kids that are there are young, but they're really filled with enthusiasm for playing at a high level. They were in Hawaii this last July, 28th year in Hawaii at the Sheraton and at the festival that was on in July. And I got to tell you, they were outstanding. They were just incredible. So we're aiming to ride that peak into
Yeah.
the ukulele festival in Great Britain in 2026.
Yeah, I do feel like it's on an upswing now. I think we did take a little bit of a dive around the COVID time, just before, and then COVID didn't help. of course. But yeah, no, that's brilliant to hear. You mentioned your son Paul, who I think I also met in 2002. Well, I did, and yeah, he was a very impressive young guy then. So, how's he doing with the ensemble, and is he doing anything different from what you used to do?
Yeah, he's doing fantastic work with the kids. He really is. And yes, it's different. He's adopted far more popular arrangements. Like he'll do pop tunes, but the arrangements are incredible. A lot of them are heavily oriented towards vocals, but if you can imagine any of those iconic guitar licks that you hear in pieces, well, he's getting the kids to nail every one of them. And I'm not talking simple little licks. I'm talking complex playing. And so he's got those kids playing the licks as the backup to the vocals, and the vocals are incredible. So he's managed to capitalize on a different genre than I did. I did a far more eclectic repertoire list. His is heavily focused, not exclusively. He still does some of the stuff that I did. He's changed it up a bit, but heavily focused on music of the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Like he'll do a whole disco set. He'll do a whole set of the from Sweden, the
ABBA.
ABBA. So he'll do a whole bunch of different artists that I didn't tackle because my thing was to show the instrument in its eclectic nature to be able to play all kinds of music.
Versatility of it. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
But he's doing great, and the kids have expanded the repertoire. And here's a good thing. I took them to LA. I retaught them some of the repertoire from my time, and they loved it. They came back. Paul redid his repertoire, and they love it. So the kids are perfect. I mean, we're so blessed. They're like a canvas, ready
Mm.
to what paint you want to throw on me? Throw it on me. I'm good for it. I'll paint any picture you want painted. And boy, I'll tell you, do they ever do it beautifully.
Yeah. Incredible. So 28 years then at the Sheraton Waikiki. It must feel like a second home to you.
Yeah, very much. Still not too many of the original people there, but those that are there remember us with great fondness. And in fact, every time I walk into the hotel, it's immediately it's like old home week. It very much is, because the people that are still there are very much like Ohana, like family. And I think that's. I mean, I'll tell you, our daughter got married, and we invited some of the staff from the Sheraton. That's how close the
Cool.
friendship is now, right?
What do you love about Hawaii?
What's not to love, my friend?
I know.
I mean,
People ask me
you know,
that question. It's like, well, you just go there and you'll get it, you know?
yeah, I will tell you, I've managed to make some great friendships with ukulele artists, teachers, and builders. So I feel very fortunate. Look, this last July, I went along. We're having a festival here in Langley in 5 weeks, and some of the Hawaiians are performers that I've met over the years are coming back. Some of my friends are coming to play. But I got there, and immediately Jake reached out and said, "Look, I'm out of town. When are you coming?" I said, "I'm going to be there then." He says, "Okay, let's get together for coffee." And so I said, "Okay, we'll have a Waikiki summit." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm going to invite Craig and Sarah Chi, and Craig and Sarah Meisel, Craig Chi, Sarah Meisel. I'm going to invite Brian Tolentino, Palihaku Seabury. Let's see if we can't get a couple of other folks come. Well, who are you thinking of?" I said, "Well, you know what? I know that Mike Upton's going to be here from Kala, so let's get him out as well." So we had this group. Paul came as well for coffee. We had this group of 8 or 9 of us. We're all sitting there having coffee and talking ukulele. Sorry, Jake was learning how to play the steel guitar at the time, and I think his first album's coming out next week. Yeah. Anyway, so, and it never felt like we were away. It felt like,
Yeah.
we got together, and we're just really enjoying being together, and enjoyed the conversation together. The other obvious thing is that aloha spirit is something we should all learn about, and we should all take to heart and try and bring to our own homes and communities. We've been very blessed again, Cam, because we didn't just go to Waikiki. When we brought the kids there, we went up the west side of the island. We went to the town of Nanakuli. where the locals live, and it's not Waikiki, pal.
But yeah,
And so we're very, very fortunate that we've made friendships where people know us to be ohana. They don't
genuine.
they don't
Yeah.
judge us as being haole. They don't treat us like we're foreigners. They treat us like part of the family. And when that happens, Hawaii becomes an even more magical place.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, yeah, aloha needs to be a worldwide initiative, I think.
Amen. Yeah.
And as you say, it's like I haven't been in years now, but even if I go back next week, having not been there for 10 years, it's almost like you've just been away for 5 minutes. They go, "Oh, hey, you doing,
Yeah.
Cam?"
Yeah. Yes. Yep. That's right.
It's a truly magical place. It really is. Now, what did you enjoy most in your time as the director?
Honestly, there are three things that I derive great joy from. You might be surprised at the first, and the first is seeing how involvement in this program changed lives, and I'm talking not just the lives of kids, but the lives of audience members. And they would perform, and we would get people who would come up and say, "I needed this today," and you'd hear a story about a bad time that they were going through, but that the youth performance just lifted their souls and lifted their spirits. Kids who would have gone waywardly, I know they would have had difficulties, and this kept them focused in a positive direction. And great kids, because we had lots of great kids who were able to develop leadership qualities that allowed them to give back to the community or allowed them to get leadership positions so that they could impact others. So, really, it was seeing the joy it brought, the enriching nature of what music can do and what creating music as a group can do. So the first and foremost thing for me was just seeing how lives were affected by what we did. The second is I just I mean, I grew up with a dad, God rest his soul, who loved music but never got a chance to make music. His family couldn't afford it, but he loved music. And so when I was a little boy playing the accordion, because that was the instrument of choice for my dad for me, he would come down and sing Italian folk songs, and I would do my best to accompany. And he was filled with joy at making music. Well, you know what? He gave me a gift, the gift of music and the gift of being able to express myself through that. And I've often thought back and said, this is a gift that should keep going. And so I feel very humbled that something that my father gave to me, I've been able to give to others with the hope that they will play it forward. So that there's been an ongoing nature of giving through music to others. It's humbling. It, you know, I think all of us would like to look back on our lives and say, I did something that was good, something.
Hmm.
And I can say sincerely that my time with music and sharing that music was something I did that was good, and I'm glad that I could do it. I'm glad that I was blessed with those talents and given the opportunity. And then the third thing is just this knowing that the way that the ukulele can be used, it's a tool. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
the vehicle is music, the tool is the ukulele, but ultimately why I do it is for the outcome for the person learning it. I want to have an impact on kids, and I want to have that to be a positive impact. I want to give adults who've always craved the chance to make music the chance to make music. I want them to feel that they're not done because they're 65 or 60 or
Mm.
58 or 75. I want them to feel that they can still make music. And so that notion that the system of teaching music that involves the ukulele, playing melodies, singing in harmony, playing parts, strumming, I'm glad that that system has given me a way, a methodology for sharing music with what is clearly thousands of people over my 45 years.
Yeah, and might I say from a personal perspective, I mean, your passion is unrivaled, and inspired me when I saw it in 2002, and you have inspired me ever since. So thank you personally.
Well, thanks for that, and I'm glad that that's how it was received for sure.
Yeah, well, totally. What do you enjoy playing now when you're just retired for yourself?
Well, retired is a relative term, but
It is. Yeah, you've just been busy today. So
yeah, right. So I actually quite enjoy putting arrangements together. So for me, one of the neat things is that I can get a group of players um, sufficiently skilled that I can then say to them, "Okay, try this." So I just had a group of adults in Vegas last week. I had them come in and the Doobie Brothers song, "Listen to the Music." Whoa, whoa, whoa! Listen to the music, right? So I have had this idea for how that song could be done on the ukulele, and because they've had some skills presented, I presented them a few more skills, and then I condensed them into a really neat arrangement of "Listen to the Music." And to their credit, they put it together. They did a nice job. We were rehearsing it, so it's not ready for prime time, but they did a great job with it. They really did, and that's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing. I mean, I love singing Hawaiian songs. I love playing Hawaiian songs. I love the opportunity to be able to challenge myself to become a better player. I'm working at chord melody all the time. My wife, I'm sure I'm driving my wife nuts. She's trying to watch TV. I'm watching with her,
does
but
she
actually
play at
I'm
all?
working on it. No, she plays a bit.
Okay.
She does play a bit. She's a very talented musician. Don't get me wrong. She's a terrific pianist. She accompanies the choir that I direct. And I'm working on a chord melody solo. And I mean, I don't do it necessarily to perform. I do it to challenge myself in the same way as I want to challenge my students. But those are the things I enjoy. I enjoy playing with intention, the instrument, figuring out things with intention so that I am better able to say to my students, here's my expectation of you two. But what I really love is getting their skill level to the point where they allow me to work with them to create arrangements that they can then perform and that I'm able to challenge myself to help put together.
Have you dabbled in any songwriting yourself?
I did actually. One of the songs that we did today with the kids was a song that I wrote about the town of the community of Langley. I've
Nice.
written a Hawaiian tune as well, so I've done a little bit of that. When I was a late teenager, I wrote pop tunes that are now that I listen to them, I cringe. Yeah, yeah, I've had some fun with that, and by all means, it's something that I can sincerely say I've tried it, and it was nice at the time, but I'll move on. Yeah.
Fair enough. Do you have a favorite instrument, favorite uke?
Oh, well,
And do you collect
I
them?
yeah, well, it's funny because you ask about favorite instruments, and I talk about you were talking about peaks, or I was talking about the peaks. You were talking about waves. I don't know if you
Mm.
can again for those listening at home, you can't see this, but over my left shoulder are some triangular ukuleles. Can you see those, Cam?
Yes, yes. Charmer's
So that
Stone,
was the
I would
that
say.
was the Canadian thing, the
Yeah.
triangular built ukulele, and
Which
the
is quite
Hawaiians.
quite wild for like the late 70s. I mean, to
Oh, listen, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
yeah.
There was a factory fire. Chalmers Doan's dad created the triangular ukulele because there
Right.
was a factory fire at the Harmony ukulele factory, and Chalmers couldn't get a shipment of ukuleles.
Really?
So he had his dad build
Ah,
a square edge because his dad couldn't do the forms for the figure eight. So he built boxes, he built rectangle, square, and he settled on the triangle. Well, the neat thing is the Hawaiians would see that when we would bring them in the mid '80s, and they'd say, "What is that thing?" And we'd say it's an ukulele, and they'd look at me and
no.
go, "No." I'd say,
Can't
"Yeah,
be.
no, no." So at one point, that was my instrument of choice. We were fortunate to get a sponsorship from Derek Shimizu at G String when he was building,
Yeah.
and I loved
Nice
the
ukes.
instruments he put together. Maya Moe built me some beautiful instruments, and I still play detuning the Maya Moes. They're beautifully toned to that tuning. And my current sponsor, the sponsor that has built my most recent ukes is Kala.
Hmm.
And so I have two custom built Kala instruments that I play in. And again, you can't see it at home, but I'm showing my friend Cam that I've played this one so much that I've actually put a hole through it.
You
So
certainly
this
have.
is, people refer to that as trigger.
Yeah, it's turning into Willie Nelson's Trigger,
Yeah,
his
yeah,
famous
Trigger
guitar.
Junior. So I play it a lot, and I just recently had Andrew Katakis present me with an Oli instrument, and I'm going to tell you that's a beautiful sounding instrument. So I have kamakas, and they play beautifully. So you asking me which one's my favorite? Well, I have my teaching instrument in detuning, my amoe. I have my teaching and playing instrument, Kala, my sponsor. And then I also have that beautiful Oli that I think is terrific. And I have several kamakas that I love. Yeah.
Yeah, similar with me. I mean, it's kind of like depends on the day and what you're trying to do. Do you have any tips for maybe someone who's listening to this who's fairly new to the uke? What would be maybe? Do you have top maybe 3 tips you could give a beginner?
Yeah. Three tips is plenty for any beginner. I'm going to say that the very first tip is that when you take the instrument, don't think of it as having one purpose. By all means, take one element of it. So if your thing is strumming the instrument, strum it,
Mm.
strum it. Go ahead. Don't feel that you have to do anything else on it, but be aware that there's more that you can do. There's no reason why you can't pick out notes and play classical music. Don't close yourself to just one way. So my first tip is, by all means, start with something that you want to do. Strum chords, sing with it by all means, but don't close the door on other options, including picking melodies and playing solos, right? Or playing. I'm trying not to play too loud because the mic's right here.
No, it
So
sounds great.
so when you put the melody and harmony together, that's another thing. So just don't close the door on anything that you might be able to do with you. That's one. Two, don't play loud. Don't play loudly. Play it gently. It's a small instrument. You don't need to hammer it. Play it so it's played musically and get used to playing it musically. All right.
Good on.
And then I would say, thirdly, as you begin to explore the instrument, find out the right way to do right. This is going to be a relative term here, the right way to do things. And what I mean by that is there's a better way to strum than just flailing your hand at it. Now, whether you do that on the internet or you get a teacher you trust, find the right way to play so that as you evolve as a player, you are doing it in a way that is efficient. So, case in point, there is absolutely nothing wrong with playing a C chord with your ring finger. That's how you'll get taught to do it, right? But you can also play it with your pinky. And if you play it with your pinky, you can then hold that C chord down when you add the F chord. And you're still playing an F chord. You're not playing a C F chord, you're playing an F chord. But it's a different version of that F chord. Here's without the A string covered. Here's with the C string or the A string covered on the C. Hear it? Well, learn about that kind of stuff so that you start to open the door to your playing.
Yeah. That's what
And
James Hill, I remember, famously calls economy of movement.
you betcha. And by the way, that's every single instrument. If you play a keyboard, you're taught that some scales are played starting with your thumb, some are starting with your middle finger, right? Like you're playing it based on the most economical way to play it. When you're playing the piano, if you're playing a string bass, there's a right way to hold it. If you're playing an upright bass, there's a right way to hold it. If you're blowing into a trumpet, there's a right way to blow. So for what it's worth, well, yeah, just leave me alone and let me flail at the instrument. Yeah, you know what? You're allowed to do that. You can, by all means. I think you'll enjoy it more if you take the time to actually say, okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it as well as I can. I'm going to find out how to do it as well as I can or as well as I want to. And I'm going to make it sound like music as opposed to just flailing at it.
Excellent. Excellent tips. Final question then. What does the ukulele mean to you?
Well, it means joy. It means learning. It means I have an opportunity to share and enrich lives, share with others so that I can enrich lives. And I would not be playing the instrument. I would not be teaching the instrument if not for the impact that I've seen it have. You know, our children, all four of our children took classical music training. Okay. Three of them played piano, Paul played violin, and took what we call conservatory level instruction. Okay. They played 3 concerts a year. And they were, I mean, I mentioned that my wife is a very accomplished pianist. She's a very good pianist. She's a very musical person. Well, they got my wife's talent. They can play. These 4 kids, they can
Mm-hmm.
play. Okay. They're musical 3 times a year. That's it. And you want to know something else? They don't play piano anymore.
Mm.
Occasionally, my son will play. My oldest son, Mark, will play. Paul, who's an accomplished violinist, occasionally will play the violin. But you know what? One daughter didn't take, we have 2 sons, 2 daughters. One daughter never took ukulele. The other 3 kids still played the ukulele.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, at the festival that we're going to have next month, I'm going to bring the kids back to perform on stage, our daughter, our 2 sons, and myself. And that shows what the difference is between the ukulele and the way that we've experienced it and any other instrument. They played beautiful piano pieces, but they don't play them anymore.
Mm.
They don't play the piano anymore. They were extremely effective and competent, but they played 3 times a year. They didn't pursue it as a career. The ukulele, on the other hand, became an instrument of choice for 2, like Paul still teaches, obviously. Mark, our oldest son, still teaches online and in fact plays regularly. He was at the camp teaching with us. Our
Wow.
oldest daughter still plays with her kids, my granddaughters, who were also at camp. So it's about that sort of that gift. That's what the Hawaiians saw it as
Yep.
originally. That's what the Portuguese brought. So let's bring it right back to the celebration that is the 23rd. Great way to close this. The 23rd is the celebration of the start, but it's also the start of a lifelong relationship
Mm.
that keeps on giving and has kept on giving. And that's what's given me such joy. And that's what I think is so unique and so great about the ukulele that, frankly, other instruments just don't have going for them.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Peter. It's been terrific to actually have an in-depth conversation with you, which I really haven't had before.
Been
Yeah,
my
it's
pleasure.
been
Thank you, Ken.
fascinating and illuminating, and all the best to Paul and to you and to the ensemble going forward, because I think we are in an upswing again, and I hope more and more people play the uke, because as we've hammered home here, it's just a great thing to do on every level.
I love it. And Cam, thanks for what you're doing to keep it alive, to keep it vibrant, to keep it in front and center. Really appreciate your efforts to that end too. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening over there, and I'll enjoy the rest of the future over here.
Aloha and
Aloha.
a hui ho until we meet again.
Ahuia. Thanks for listening to Ukulele Stories. If you're enjoying the show, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. To take us out, here's the Langley Ukulele Ensemble with Turkish Rondo. I'm Cameron Murray. Until next time, keep on smiling and keep on strumming.